Hey you guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Hudson Rivera, and today we're going to be talking about the Asian water monitor. That's what we have right up here. He is a black dragon variation, and we're going to be talking about body language, different ways that we can help tame these guys down, how to handle these guys, and just really going on an overview of how we can work with these guys, especially when they're young and they haven't been worked with much. So the guy up here, like I said, is a black dragon, which tend to run a little bit more on that wild side. So different ways that we can go about this is first off, when I take him out, typically if he's been basking, which I'm not sure if he's been basking just because I just got home not too long ago here. However, if they have been basking, they tend to be a little bit more crazy, which I think this guy has been, considering how he's being right now. I recommend for you guys to put something underneath. Yeah. I recommend for you guys to put something underneath where you've been, because I'm standing on carpet right now. So if he decides to poop or pee, just especially when he's going crazy like this as he is right now, that is a little bit easier to clean up, and except unless you have something like a hard floor concrete sort of thing, depending on where you're keeping your animals. This guy isn't being too bad right now, but typically if you're dealing with a monitor that's going to be running all over the place, freaking out, you want to make sure that you're not just gripping them super tightly to where they feel like they have no control or whatever. You want to make sure that you're just kind of letting them walk in your hands. If you guys want to wear gloves, because I know their little claws can be pretty sharp here, that's perfectly okay. We have some good tongue flickering, which you can see where the tongue is coming completely out. He's not displaying any form of aggression. He's just kind of wanting to get out of here. Those long tongue flickers are really good signs of just a thinking animal, right? Another way that we can go about getting this guy to calm down and just think is putting him up in the air. I don't know if he's out of frame right there, but you can tell that it allows them to just kind of process everything that's going on around, right? Especially if we spin in a circle, which I'm not going to do just for camera purposes, and just to make the video go well. However, just handling these guys and making sure that they are slowly calming down, right? He feels like he's free. I can let him climb up my sleeve a little bit, right? And these guys are just great animals to work with. But like I said, the black dragon variation, the sort of melanistic, why this guy is just fully black, for those of you that don't know, is just extra melanin in those scales. However, he is an Asian water monitor. I said he. I still don't know what gender. I'm just assuming a he because he was the biggest one out of the clutch. When he was a baby, he has a little bit thicker base at the tail, but this guy is just an absolute beauty. We're just gonna go ahead and let you go back into your cage. Come on, buddy. However, these guys, when you work with them, there's different ways to get trust. Just working with them day by day, each day handling them a little bit. You want to make a big thing for these guys is making sure that every session that you work with them, it ends on a good note, preferably, correct? So if we're working with this guy, you don't want to put him back in the midst of chaos. You want to put him back when he's thinking, when he's calm, when he's crawling, when he's just kind of enjoying things. Maybe that's after you feed him, and that sort of thing. But we want to make sure every interaction is ending on a good note, right? We don't want to put him back when it ended on a bad note, so that next time the last thing that he can think of was that sort of bad energy. So this guy is a great example just because he's probably, he's calmed down a little bit since when I first got him, but he has definitely been a little bit more of a wild one than other monitors that I've worked with previously. But like I said, another big one right now is feeding. So if we're going to be feeding this guy, sometimes like this guy, he would not eat from tongs, got super scared, would whip the tongs, would whip the food, wasn't even curious, just saw me as a complete threat. So making sure that we're spending time near the cage so they get a little bit more used to our presence, that we're handling them, and like I said, making sure that we're ending things on a good note. So just little by little, we're building that sort of rapport with this animal. We're building a relationship with this animal. And just over a progression in a period of time, hopefully this animal will begin to start eating from you as he gets more adjust to you. Once he gets more just accustomed to you being around the enclosure and handling him and doing that sort of thing. And as we build that rapport, then we can begin to hand feed. And when I say hand feed, I mean with tongs, right? We don't want to end up getting bit, and we don't want, this is kind of a controversial aspect of it to, have the scent on the food that we're feeding them. And people have different opinions about that, but I'm just a big fan of using tongs for different reasons. But that's besides the point. So once we get to the point to where we're able to use these guys, or if you have a bigger monitor, the bigger tongs, once we get to that point of being able to build that rapport through food, that's a really big one, especially with these sort of food aggressive animals. And when I say food aggressive, I mean just really primal and really intense when it comes to feeding time. Similar to the reticulated pythons that are just always ready to eat, monitors are very much similar. I haven't worked with every variation of monitors, but the water monitors, all those sort of guys are really prone to just like wanting to go, always wanting to eat and always ready to eat. So being able to build a relationship through feeding is a really big one for these guys. So we want to make sure that we're handling, that we are building trust. And, if you're having a problem with handling and, we have a guy that does eat from tongs, but he's not cool with handling quite yet. I've seen different people that work with their monitors in the sense that they feed the animal and build the rapport with food before the actual handling, right? And so they're feeding this guy, and we'll just do this for a visual aspect. They'll be feeding their monitor, and then they'll have their hand right here and progressively work that monitor to start coming onto their arm, working that food up here to where the monitor is just cool crawling on them just because they know that's where the food is going to be. You can work about it that way. I haven't always worked with it that sort of way. I tend to just take the animal out, work with him. And at least with my experience with this guy, he was more, I guess you could say, comfortable with handling before he was eating in front of me, which isn't something that I've been very used to, but each animal's going to have a unique and individual personality. So the biggest things when it comes to these guys is just building a trustworthy base that we're going to be taking them and just taking things slowly. We don't want to put the animal in too much of an uncomfortable position, so it's really important that we're remembering not to hold the animal in place to where it feels kind of constrained and it doesn't feel like it can freely move. We want to make sure that our hands are just kind of letting him walk through, let him kind of explore, and that we're ending things on that good note, like I said earlier. These animals are just beautiful animals, but if you ever do consider getting a water monitor, understand the amount of work it is going to take, the water space, the enclosure space. The enclosure that we have for this guy when he gets older takes up literally half of a large room, right? And so we want to make sure that if we're getting into these animals, we are making sure that they have a big space. We understand the work that's going to go into, the financial investment that you're going to need to put in for these animals. Because it can be easy to see this cute little lizard. However, he's going to become a big boy, especially if he's a male, right? So we want to make sure that we're keeping all of these things in our perspective before purchasing and really doing our research for if this is something that you can handle. You have the experience level, like you've owned more than just your leopard gecko or bearded dragon. This is a very advanced animal to be working with. Thank God the Asian water monitor is one of the tamer monitor lizards out there, isn't like the Nile monitor and things of that nature, which are a little bit more prone to aggression. Not to say that Nile monitors can't make great animals to work with. However, we're going to make sure that we have enough experience before hopping right into that. And so these guys are just beautiful animals. Absolutely love him to death. But then again, another thing is to keep in mind, this isn't always, but this has just been my personal experience when working with these guys, is that the black dragon variation tends to be just run a little bit more wild than the typical sort of common genetics of a regular Asian water monitor, right? The one that has less melanin in that. Not necessarily sure why. I don't know the science behind why they tend to be that way or if it's even scientific. However, I will say just on personal experience, that's the way that it tends to be. So if you guys have any questions or any concerns in that sort of regard, feel free to comment on this video. If you liked it, please feel free to subscribe and like this video. I'd really appreciate it. Your guys' support means the world to me. And so we're going to continue to upload animal content. This has just kind of been short little video just to help people get a basic understanding of what is it going to be like to sort of handle these animals. What do we want to look for? The biggest things when we're handling these animals I would also like to touch topic on, actually before I end this video, is the body language. That's a huge one, right? Making sure that we get long tongue flicks. If the animal is just getting half the tongue out and it's a really slow flicker, that's a sign of, getting ready. You see the throat puffing up. If you see the throat puffing up, the tail sort of starting to curl, that's a sign that he's probably going to whip. He's trying to look bigger by puffing himself up to sort of try to intimidate you, to try and get you to back off, right? Another one that it's going to be a little bit hard to describe just through talking about it, right? But is just simply a look in their eyes, right? When you see the eye sort of start to move a certain way, you guys have worked with monitors and that sort of thing previously. I think you can know what I sort of mean based on the look in their literal eye, but that just comes from experience. But the biggest things and the telltale signs are, is his tongue constantly flickering, right? Is he puffed up? Is his tail starting to curl as if he's going to try and whip you? Does he have his mouth open? Those things are very large telltale signs to how is this animal feeling, right? And these guys are beautiful animals. This is just for educational purposes only. But there's several amazing YouTube videos out there that cover body language, that cover way more in-depth different things that I've kind of mentioned in this video. Like I said, this is just kind of a broad overview. And so if you guys have any questions, like I said, feel free to leave that in the comment section below. And I thank you guys for your time, and I wish you guys a blessed day. God bless everybody, and take care.